Day before yesterday, we experienced the lunar eclipse, and now we are visiting parents in Poland till 8 November, so we'll be recording from this place. Yesterday I've watched the movie Into the Wild, which portrays the life of Christopher McCandless, which will illustrate one of the examples today. And when we are talking about the resilience, how to analyze it in the chart, I have seen that other astrologers are mixing it a little bit with courage and bravery, and these three things are quite different, and also they will have different parts in the chart. In this video I will explore the resilience and how to see this in our astrological time. The second point will be how to mix that with timing, and the third will be how this can contribute to our personal growth. I will illustrate this using the three examples. Resilience is very much related to ability to recover from some hard, challenging situations and to emerge even stronger, whilst the courage is more like an internal mindset, often connected to views or to rights, and sometimes it can be even in defense of others, and the bravery is the outward display, which often happens spontaneously. A natural question would be how our natural birth chart influences the resilience or courage in our life. So in the Vedic text we see that there are shlokas which are saying that the third house is very important, but in our tradition we also learn that the first in the Navamsha is showing how we are wielding the weapons, and therefore this point will be very crucial to check this in the chart. Of course, our first example will be of Christopher McCandless. We know that he was traveling, hitchhiking in the 92. He started this in April, and he was going to California, to Mexico, from South Dakota, then to Alaska. And then when the sun Rahu came, because he started in the sun Antardasha, but then in the Ketu Rahu Antardasha, it was really extreme, and he decided to go to a quite peripheral part of Alaska and staying there for some time. And unfortunately, he passed away in August. This was due to a poisoning, then leading to a starvation. You can see that in the movie. He was basically feeding himself with the blueberries and other plants, and it was very easy to mix which are edible and which are not. And then he committed that mistakes which led to his death. And we know that he wanted to return, but it was very hard because the river now in that point of time was quite more difficult to cross, and he didn't know the topography of the map, so it was very hard for him to navigate back to those places with more infrastructure. It's not so much about resilience and self-growth, but definitely we can talk here about the authentic life and about the courage. So as a side note, we can see his spiritual yogas, his strong mind, relationship with the parents, and also the problems, the hits to the fortune. First thing is that he has very strong moon in the Lagna, and in Crux of Vedic Astrology we have the similar example when Pandit Sanjay Rath says that this is giving the strong mind. And here this is even more important because Sun is in the 7th, so this is almost full moon. We call it the Purnima, so then moon is very strong, it's almost like Jupiter. But this almost plays also a crucial role because it's not Purnima here, it's one day, one lunar day before. This is called Chaturdashi. And now very interesting thing happens, because when moon is in own sign, we need to see Venus, and also if it's Chaturdashi, also Venus plays the crucial role. So the Venus is very important graha in this chart, and this is even more important because this is starting the Graha Malika Yoga from the 6th to the 9th house. In the context of analyzing spirituality, when Graha Malika starts from the 6th house, it provides this spiritual background, this backdrop for this spiritual development. And in fact, we say that if the person is not spiritual, this can lead to some problems in life. And especially in this Jupiter and sign Sagittarius, we have definitely there. Now, because it's the Lagna Lord, moon, giving the Venus is taking the effects. I will give the direction. I will sabotage this whole mind and I will lead where it should go. So the Venus is also a Badakesha, therefore this person was traveling and was crossing boundaries and so on. So this is also a very important point. And if we see the Narayana Dasha, it happened all in that Taurus sign, so we can see that all these travels were also very nicely reflected by all of these dashas in his life. But what is very important, according to his sister diary, was very much inspired by the challenges in the house. So with the parents, his father had some problem with alcohol. There were a lot of quarrels, possibly also some physical violence, and he was experiencing that as a big challenge. And then he was also inspired by all of these, we could say, anarchist or minimalist, anti-consumer, anti-capitalist authors like Thoreau, also the John London. And when mixing these two factors, then he was in love with that concept of going into the wild and rejecting the materialism. And in the chart, this is manifesting as rejection of rajas, because this power, this force of rajas, of Mercury and Venus, this is what is making us play the game in the society, that we want to have those shiny, nice things and experience various type of relationships. So this is Mercury and Venus, this is 10th Lord and the 7th Lord, and we can see that all of these 4 points in this charts are in Dushtan, and in fact in 6 and 8, which is showing the rejection or even hate. So when, for example, we can see that in the movie, when his father wanted to give him this gift of a car, he rejected it, and he said that, oh, new things, again, new things, I don't want to collect new things, I want to have the old car. So this is, we can see how this rejection of the rajas in his life is reflected in the chart. We can also see that the 10th Lord is in 9th house. From 10, this is a 12. This sometimes can give also kind of rejection of the career life if other yogas are here supporting that. And we can see this is the Saturn, the Mars, Rahu, and in the 9th from the moon, which is showing the focus. So there is definitely something there. 10th Lord with the 8th Lord. This is also very important for this rejection of greed in the career life. After the moon, we have Jupiter and Ketu. This is also supporting more this moksha marga, this spiritual direction. And the Rahu, the biggest karaka for material life, is in the 12th from the Arudha Lagna. So we have very, very spiritual chart here. Now we have this big hit into the fortune, because we have 3 malefics in 9th house. This is horrible. And we have the 9th Lord in the 2nd house. This is not so bad, but because it's Jupiter, we need to take the Anitya Karaka, which is dispositor. Now the relationship between the Jupiter and Sun is 6-8, and the Sun at Makaraka in the 7th house is giving that soul purpose to travel, to seek himself in the various places of the world. But because of that bad relationship between the 9th Lord and the Karaka, and the 9th Lord so heavily hit, you can see the big challenge to the fortune, to the luck, which can manifest as an accident or extreme situations when the nature is a big adversary for you. But if we'll analyze his chart, his 10th Lord, Mars, we could say it's quite strong, because this is with in that Yama Yoga, so it's making it strong, right? Mars and Saturn is making the Mars exalted, and Saturn is very nice in the Pisces. So from this perspective of Tapa, which is the resilience, this big strength of the mind, which we'll talk soon, this could be quite strong. Also in the second example of Juliana Kepke, she was the one of the few passengers which survived this plane crash in Peru, and for 11 days she was alone trying to survive in that land also. So it demanded a lot of courage, a lot of resilience. So therefore we also took her chart, and we will see that also her 7, all the Kendras are quite strong in the chart. We will soon try to reveal what will be the vital house to see the resilience. And in the third example of Aaron Ralston, whose hand was basically stuck between the boulder and the rock, and after 5 days of this fight, it's also a very big challenge for the mind, he decided to self-amputate his arm, and then going also back to some kind of city infrastructure. So we can see that in all of these situations, we can see that nature was quite cruel, and one had to go into a big fight to survive. Also going to the central point, I remember that post of Sanjay Ji, when he said that if you want to fight with some addiction and you want to start this commitment, this oath, making this a vrata, then you need to choose a day based on your 10th Lord. Because the 10th Lord, if you are doing that, then you will have much more success. Your oath, your vrata will succeed, or at least will have more chance to do so if you will choose the starting day of the 10th Lord. And therefore, recently I also talking with my Guruji, Visti Larsen, who also instructed me that this house is very crucial in those matters. So if we see all these 3 charts, then we will find out that 10th house was extremely strong, especially in the second example. We have Lagna Lord exalted in the 10th, and the 10th Lord is exalted also in the 7th house Saturn. In that third example, we have Jupiter in own sign is even retrograde, so it's making that resilience, that desire even stronger, and it has this beautiful yoga with also very strong fourth house, so Mercury and Jupiter is beautiful yoga, which later channelized into this personal growth. We will talk about this in the third point. So without the timing system, we are not there yet, because that could happen in old age, that could happen in young age. So which processes, which methods to use when this resilience can be tested in our life, or when this can grow. So when we see Vimshottari Dasha, it was in the Ketu Sun. The Atma Karaka is in the 7th house, which shows that soul desire for travel. In the Navamsha, Atma Karaka in Virgo Pisces, this can also show a spiritual person. And here it is very important, because Sun being in Virgo, it will have that Pisces, the sign of liberation, of freedom, in the 7th house. So that was his main desire. And what would be the natural consequence of that is that Rahu will be also there in the Pisces. So in Ketu, Rahu, this was the extreme time when he was looking for that freedom, when he wanted to somehow fulfill or attain or reach that maximum peak of freedom, of this moksha marga component in his life. And we can also appreciate second lord in the 7th house. This can show some form of enmity with the family, which was also inspiring. Somehow it was something very important, something which he experienced very deeply, because this is Atma Karaka point in his chart. Because that Rahu was in the 9th house, this is the time when the fortune was tested. In the Navamsha, this was 4th from moon, so this was very extreme, very dangerous time, which can also show the time of demise. And also it is with the 10th lord in the rashi, so from perspective of this video, this is showing when his resilience will be tested. Unfortunately, there is the Yama Yoga, and there is also the Kuja Stambhana Yoga, when this Mars is really, his fire is taken out by this Rahu. In the second example of Juliana Kepke, the time, the Vimshottari, was Mercury, Ketu, and Jupiter, Saturn, using the variation. We can see how these two dashas are dancing together. These two planets are in the 10th house in the Navamsha. Because it's Ketu, it will always, we could say, show the influence of the other planets in the chart. So we can see that he will take all this action on himself from this grahas in the 4th house, so they are quite dangerous. And again, we have connection to the 12th lord through the Uchanata. 12th lord is Mars, exalted, giving effects of Saturn. So Saturn is with Ketu. In one Antardasha it was Saturn, in other Antardasha, in other timing system, it was Ketu, activating the 12th house of demise, passing away, or at least very serious health hazards, especially if it's so bad yoga and aspecting by this 4th house problem. The rashi chart, how this will manifest, it is again having to do with that problematic 9th house of fortune, and in this case, we have Ketu and Sagittarius as these components of this misfortune. And we know that these two are related to falling from heights. If you have Sagittarius, this can show generally accident, but especially among all these other signs or planets related to accidents, specifically Sagittarius is related to the heights, and especially Ketu is related to the planes, because it shows this vertical direction. So we have this yoga of Ketu related to the 9th house, to the Sagittarius, and we have this misfortune, and it was all reflected properly by this timing system. And we have a very interesting thing. 9th lord is in the 4th house, so we know that when Jupiter is exalted in Cancer, it will always hit the Sagittarius, whatever it is. Therefore, this misfortune, not only of the debilitated planet, but also because of that exalted Jupiter, which will always very strongly hit the Sagittarius. And now, very interesting thing occurs, because there is parivartana with the 4th lord moon in the 12th. So we know that her mother was also in the plane, and unfortunately she didn't have a chance to survive. She passed away in that accident, and we can see that parivartana, the exchange. So ultimately we can say that this Jupiter was protecting her, and was showing them unfortunate event for her mother. Also using other dasha, that all was related also to this 12th house in the Navamsha, showing that this is the time of very hard tests related to health, accidents, and so on. Now, in the third example of Aaron Ralston, we have Ketu Saturn and Mars Sun. Ketu Saturn Anubhava will go to that 5th house. But what is important here, this is a 4th from the moon, which is hitting the hands. We have very bad yoga, Sun and Rahu. Sun debilitated, and this yoga, Sun and Rahu is also quite extreme. Basic variation, this was Mars Sun, also related to this, which is showing that in that time the person may have endure or going through some also quite extreme hazards. And again, we have this Parivartana Sun and Venus, so ultimately he was protected. Ultimately, at least he lost his arm, his life was saved. We could even say that this experience would make his inner life, his personal growth even more. And again, we have the Ninth Lord, the Saturn here was the Dasha. Saturn for Gemini is the Ninth Lord. So again, when the Ninth Lord, negative Ninth Lord is showing up, this is again showing this challenging situation, this very much misfortune. So this is some external world or God or fate is definitely, or nature, they are going against you. The Moon Saturn Yoga is showing also the internal person, the philosopher, someone who will seek the nature, the silence, the introvert mind. And Saturn is again fourth from the Moon, and therefore, apart from the other Dasha, which was pointing at the 12th house, this vimshottari is also showing a big health issues because this is fourth from the Sun in the Navamsha, activating the Karesha. This is very important because that Saturn is in the 6th house, which is also very negative from this perspective and aspected by Mars and Ketu. And we know that the Rasi Rishi, the sign aspect, is very important in the Vargas, very important in the Navamsha. And from the Jataka Parijata, we learned that this yoga Mars and Ketu is responsible for amputation. Okay guys, if you're enjoying this video, please do me a favor and hit that like button. Let's see if we can get 80 likes on this video. And you haven't already, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you'll not miss any future content. If you have any thoughts or feedback, then drop that comment below. I always love to read your comments. And if you are looking to join a vibrant community on the Discord, when we are discussing such examples and when we can also help each other to progress in Vedic astrology, then you can find the link in the description. Right, enough said, now let's dive right back into the video. Now there are people who are saying that there are some bad events without any lessons, but we know from Vedic astrology that it's never or very rarely so. So let's find out how these charts are reflecting those and how we can then see those in our lives. In that second chart of Juliana Kepke, we know that she was studying mammalogy. She was very much then into the biology. So that whole event was very much inspiring her to return to science and increase her expertise there. And we also know that she was returning to Peru. So she was very much connected to that place. Now in the dashamsa chart, in the career chart, we are tempted to add few minutes to have that Mercury-Jupiter yoga, very nice related to the Lagna and 10th Lord. This would show a teaching, but we know that she was very much known from the research into the biology. And we have this 10th Lord Rahu, which is showing the research. Rahu is the planet of experiments, of going very deep in the Lagna, so very much reflected or totally dominating her career life. And what is most important, and what I think this Taurus may be right, is that the Taurus is dotted by Venus and Moon, and these two planets are controlling the biology. So biology and also chemistry will be related to that Venus and Moon. In that third chart of Aaron Ralston, this has completely changed his life. He wrote a memoir, a book, he is motivational speaker, coach, and he's also activist fighting very strongly for preservation of the nature life. So definitely this has a profound impact on his life, and we can see how this is very nicely here reflected as a writer. Lagna Lord Mercury is in the 4th house with the Arudha Lagna. So first of all, when Lagna and Arudha Lagna are connected, this can grant fame. How? Through the Mercury, because this is the bridging graha, and Mercury is showing the writing. Navamsha also confirms good success and money from this occupation. And we have this nice yoga, this intellectualism of Mercury and Jupiter, and the Jupiter will bring now more, or will support this person more into this coaching, training, and motivational speaker and all that. And of course, everything has to be confirmed by the Varga. We have in the 7th house, in the dashamsa, the chart of profession, Moon and Jupiter in the 7th house. So we know that this very standard, very old rule is that when Moon and Jupiter are in the first 7 from Lagna or Arudha Lagna, it is granting the fame for the person. So here we can see was in the dashamsa and in the rashi we have this connection on the Lagna and Arudha Lagna granting fame. So to conclude, in our charts, we have to see how these bad yogas are connected to the positive ones. Often they will be connected through the dispositor, because that will show the outcome, the fruit. And also if they are somehow related to the Lagna and Arudha Lagna, it is making the person famous, but also it can show the strengthening of the personal growth. Because when Lagna is activated through the Dasha, I have seen that very often, and I was also instructed in this way that this can show that now is the time to focus on ourselves, for the self-growth. Sometimes we can, in those times, ignore our relationship. So we need to be careful to balance these both parts. Thanks for watching at the end and being here with me on this channel. Please do me a favor, click that like button, subscribe for more, and if you like to have 90-minute personal consultations when we are discussing your charts, you can find the mail below. But all those predictions cannot be done without properly rectified Navamsha, so if you want to learn how to do it, then please consider watching this video.